Chapter 15. Light and Heat in Heaven. People who think only from nature cannot comprehend that there is light in the heavens. Yet such is the light in the heavens that it exceeds by many degrees the noonday light of the world. I have often seen that light even during the evening and night. At first I marvelled when I heard angels saying that the light of the world is little more than a shadow in comparison to the light of heaven, but having seen it, I can testify that it is so. The brightness and splendour are such as cannot be described. The things that I have seen in the heavens have been seen in that light, thus more clearly and distinctly than things in this world. The light of heaven is not a natural light like that of the world, but a spiritual light, because it is from the Lord as a sun, and that sun is the divine love, as shown in the previous section. That which goes forth from the Lord as a sun is called in the heavens divine truth, although in essence it is divine good united to divine truth. From this, the angels have light and heat, light from divine truth and heat from divine good. So it can be confirmed from this that the light of heaven from such a source is spiritual and not natural, likewise the heat. The divine truth is light to the angels because angels are spiritual and not natural. Spiritual beings see from their sun, and natural beings from theirs. It is from divine truth that angels have understanding, and their understanding is their internal sight, which flows into and produces their external sight. Therefore, in heaven, whatever is seen from the Lord as the sun appears in light. This being the source of light in heaven, the light there is varied in accordance with the reception of divine truth from the Lord, or what is the same, in accordance with the intelligence and wisdom in which the angels are. Thus differently in the celestial kingdom and in the spiritual kingdom, and differently in each particular society. In the celestial kingdom, the light appears flaming because the angels there receive light from the Lord as a sun. But in the spiritual kingdom, the light is white because the angels there receive light from the Lord as a moon. So too the light is not the same in one society as in another. It differs in each society, those in the middle being in the greater light, and those around them in less light. In a word, the angels have light in the same degree in which they are receptions of divine truth, that is, in intelligence and wisdom from the Lord. This is why the angels of heaven are called angels of light. As the Lord in the heavens is divine truth, and the divine truth there is light, so in the Word the Lord is called the light. Likewise every truth from him, as in the following passages. Jesus said, "I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world." Jesus said, "Yet a little while is the light with you. Walk while ye have the light, lest darkness overtake you. While ye have the light, believe in the light, that ye may be sons of light. I have come a light into the world, that whosoever believeth on me should not abide in darkness. Light hath come into the world, but men have loved darkness rather than light. John said of the Lord, This is the true light which lighteneth every man. The people that sit in darkness have seen a great light, and to them that were sitting in the shadow of death, light is sprung up. I will give thee for a covenant of the people, for a light of the Gentiles. I have established thee for a light of the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. The nations of them that are saved shall walk in his light. Send out thy light and thy truth. Let them lead me. In these and other passages, the Lord is called the light from the divine truth, which is from him, and the truth itself is called light. As light in the heavens is from the Lord as a sun, so when he was transfigured before Peter, James, and John, his face appeared as the sun, and his garments as the light, shining and white as snow, so as no fuller on earth can whiten. The Lord's garments had this appearance because they represented the divine truth, which is from him in the heavens. Garments in the word signify truths. Consequently, it is said in David, Jehovah, thou coverest thyself with light, as with a garment. That the light in the heavens is spiritual, and moreover that this light is divine truth, may be inferred from the fact that man also has spiritual light and has enlightenment from that light, so far as he is in intelligence and wisdom from divine truth. Man's spiritual light is the light of his understanding, and the objects of that light are truths, which he arranges analytically into groups, forms into reasons, and from them draws conclusions in a series. The natural man does not know that light from which the understanding sees such things is the real light, for he neither sees it with his eyes nor perceives it in thought. Yet there are many who recognize this light and distinguish it from the natural light in which those are who think naturally and not spiritually. Those who take account of the world only think naturally and attribute all things to nature, while those think spiritually who take account of heaven and attribute all things to the divine. It has many times been granted to me to perceive and also to see that there is a true light that enlightens the mind, wholly distinct from the light called the natural light. I have been raised up interiorly into that light by degrees, and as I was raised up, my understanding became so enlightened as to enable me to perceive what I did not perceive before, and finally such things as I could not even comprehend by thought from natural light. Sometimes I felt indignant that these things could not be comprehended when yet they were so clearly and plainly perceived in heavenly light. Since the understanding has its light, therefore it is said of it as of the eye, that it sees, and is in light when it perceives, and is in obscurity and shade when it does not perceive, and many similar expressions. As the light of heaven is divine truth, that light is also divine wisdom and intelligence. Therefore, to be raised up into the light of heaven means the same as to be raised up into intelligence and wisdom, and to be enlightened. For this reason, the light with angels is in the same degree as their intelligence and wisdom. Because the light of heaven is divine wisdom, therefore in that light the character of everyone is recognized. The interiors of anyone lie open to view in his face, just as they are, with not the least thing hidden. Interior angels also love all things pertaining to them to lie revealed, since they will nothing but good. It is otherwise with those beneath heaven who do not will what is good, and therefore greatly fear to be seen in the light of heaven. And wonderful to tell, those in hell appear to one another as men, but in the light of heaven they appear as monsters, horrid in face and body, the exact form of their own evil. Man, in respect of his spirit, when observed by angels, is seen in the same way. If good, he appears as a man, beautiful in accord with his good. If evil, as a monster, deformed in accord with his evil. From this it is clear that all things are made manifest in the light of heaven. They are made manifest because the light of heaven is divine truth. As divine truth is light in the heavens, so all truths, wherever they are, whether within an angel or outside him, or whether within the heavens or outside them, emit light. Nevertheless, truths outside the heavens do not shine as do truths within the heavens. Truths outside the heavens shine coldly, like something snowy without heat, because they do not draw their essence from good, as do the truths within the heavens. Therefore that cold light vanishes as soon as the light of heaven falls on it, and if there is evil underneath, it is turned into darkness. This I have sometimes seen, and many other noteworthy things about the shining of truth, which are omitted here. Now something will be said about the heat of heaven. That heat, in its essence, is love. It goes forth from the Lord as the sun, which, as has been shown in the previous section, is divine love in the Lord and from the Lord. It is clear, then, that the heat of heaven is spiritual, just like the light of heaven, because from the same source. There are two things that go forth from the Lord as a sun: divine truth and divine good. Divine truth is manifested in the heavens as light, and divine good as heat. Yet divine truth and divine good are so united that they are not two, but one. Nevertheless, with the angels they are separated, for there are angels who receive divine good more than divine truth, and there are those who receive divine truth more than divine good. Those who receive more divine good are in the Lord's celestial kingdom, and those who receive more divine truth are in the Lord's spiritual kingdom. The most perfect angels are those who receive both in the same degree. The heat of heaven, like the light of heaven, is everywhere different. It is different in the celestial kingdom from what it is in the spiritual kingdom, and it is different in each particular society there. It differs not only in degree, but also in quality. It is more intense and pure in the Lord's celestial kingdom, because the angels there receive more divine good. less intense and pure in the Lord's spiritual kingdom, because the angels there receive more divine truth. Also, in each society, the heat differs in accordance with the reception. There is heat also in the hells, but it is unclean. The heat in heaven is what is meant by sacred and heavenly fire, and the heat of hell by profane and infernal fire. Love is meant by both. By heavenly fire is meant love to the Lord and love towards the neighbour, with every affection of those loves. By infernal fire is meant love of self and of the world and every lust of those loves. That love is heat from a spiritual source is evident from one's growing warm with love, for in accordance with the strength and nature of his love, a man is inflamed and grows warm, the heat of his love becoming manifest when attacked. So it is usual to speak of being inflamed, of growing warm, burning, boiling, being on fire, both in regard to the affections of the love of good and the lusts of the love of evil. Love going forth from the Lord as a sun is felt in heaven as heat, because the interiors of the angels are in a state of love from the divine good which is from the Lord. And in consequence their exteriors, which grow warm therefrom, are in a state of heat. For this reason, heat and love so correspond to each other in heaven that everyone there is in a state of heat such as his love is, according to the things said just before. The heat of the world does not enter heaven at all, because it is too gross and is natural and not spiritual. But with men it is otherwise, because they are in both the spiritual world and the natural world. As to their spirits, they grow warm in exact accordance with their loves. But as to the body, they grow warm both from the heat of their spirit and from the heat of the world. The former flows into the latter because they correspond. The nature of the correspondence of the two kinds of heat can be confirmed from animal life, in that the love of animals, the chief of which is the love of propagating offspring of their kind, bursts forth into activity in accordance with the presence and influence of heat from the sun of the world, which is only in the time of spring and summer. Greatly mistaken are those who think that the heat of the world inflowing excites these loves. For there is no such thing as influx from the natural into the spiritual, but only from the spiritual into the natural. This influx is from divine order, but the other would be contrary to divine order. Angels, like men, have understanding and will. The light of heaven makes the life of their understanding, because that light is divine truth and divine wisdom therefrom. And the heat of heaven makes the life of their will, because that heat is divine good and divine love therefrom. The veriest life of the angels is from heat, but not from light, except in so far as it has heat in it. It is evident that life is from heat, for when heat is removed, the life perishes. The same is true of faith without love, or of truth without good. For the truth that is called the truth of faith is light, and the good that is called the good of love is heat. This is more clearly shown by the heat and light of the world, to which the heat and light of heaven correspond. From the heat of the world, conjoined with light, all things upon the face of the earth are quickened and flourish. Heat and light are conjoined in the spring and summer seasons. But from light separated from heat, nothing is quickened or flourishes, but all things lie torpid and die. Heat and light are not conjoined in winter, when heat is absent, though light continues. From this correspondence, heaven is called paradise, since truth is there conjoined with good, or faith with love, as light is with heat in springtime on the earth. All this more clearly establishes the truth set forth in the appropriate section, that the divine of the Lord in heaven is love to him and charity towards the neighbour. It is said in John, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. He was in the world, and the world was made by him. And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory." It is evident that the Lord is meant by the Word. For it is said that the Word was made flesh. But what is specifically meant by the Word has not yet been known, and will therefore be explained. In this passage, the Word is the divine truth, which is in the Lord and from the Lord. That is why the Lord is also called the Light, which is the divine truth, as has already been shown in this section. That by the divine truth all things were made and created will now be explained. In heaven, divine truth has all power, and apart from it there is no power whatever. From the divine truth, all angels are called powers, and are powers to the extent that they are receptions or receptacles of it. By means of it they prevail over the hells and over all that oppose them. 1,000 enemies there cannot endure a single ray of the light of heaven, which is divine truth. Since angels are angels from their reception of divine truth, it follows that the entire heaven is from no other source, for heaven consists of angels. That there is such power latent in divine truth is incredible to those who have no other idea of truth than that it is thought or speech, which have no power in themselves except as others do them from obedience. But divine truth has power in itself, and such power that by means of it heaven was created, and the world with all things therein. That there is such power latent in divine truth may be illustrated by two comparisons, namely by the power of truth and good in man, and by the power of light and heat from the sun in the world. By the power of good and truth in man. Everything that a man does, he does from his understanding and will, and from his will by means of good, and from his understanding by means of truth. For all things in the will have relation to good, and all things in the understanding to truth. Therefore it is from good and truth that man moves his whole body, and 1,000 things therein rush with one accord to do their will and pleasure. This makes it clear that the whole body has been formed for subservience to good and truth, consequently formed from good and truth. By the power of heat and light from the sun of the world. All things that grow in the world, such as trees, cereals, flowers, grasses, fruits and seeds, come into existence by no other means than by the heat and light of the sun, which shows what power of production there is in them. What then must be the power in divine light, which is divine truth, and in divine heat, which is divine good? For from these heaven comes into existence, and the world also, since the world comes into existence by means of heaven, as has already been shown. From these facts can be established how it is to be understood that all things were made by the Word, and that without him was not anything made that was made, and that the world was made by him, namely by means of divine truth from the Lord. For the same reason, in the book of creation, light is first spoken of, and then the things that are from light. For this reason also, all things in the universe, both in heaven and the world, have relation to good and truth, and to their conjunction in order to be anything. It should be known that the divine good and the divine truth that are from the Lord as a sun in the heavens are not in the Lord, but from the Lord. In the Lord there is only divine love, which is the being from which the divine good and truth come into existence. Existing from being is meant by going forth. This too can be made clear by comparison with the sun of the world. The heat and light that are in the world are not in the sun but from it. In the sun there is fire only, and it is from this that heat and light come into existence and go forth. Since the Lord as a sun is divine love, and divine love is divine good itself, so the divine that goes forth from the Lord, which is his divine in heaven, is called, for the sake of distinction, divine truth, although it is divine good united to divine truth. This divine truth is what is called the holy going forth from him.